Israelis have no agency, apparently, according to Alan Dershowitz. Everything is the fault of the Palestinians. So many falsehoods in there. There was no Palestinian state offered in 1967. That's when Israel began its illegal occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. And even if we buy this nonsense that Clinton and Barack
How about
offered...
1948?
I didn't interrupt you when you were speaking.
1948?
Can I say my point? You've said all your falsehoods. Now I'm going to debunk them.
In this explosive debate, Mehdi Hasan completely flips the script, and you can literally feel the tension rising in the room. What starts as a normal discussion quickly turns into a full breakdown of arguments as he directly challenges Alan Dershowitz on key historical and political claims. And here's the shocking part. He doesn't just disagree, he systematically pushes back point by point, forcing everyone watching to rethink what they thought they knew. Even Piers Morgan, who's seen thousands of debates, looks genuinely caught in the middle of something much bigger. Don't miss this, because this is where the conversation takes a serious turn.
You said that Clinton and Barack offered a state. Not true. At Camp David, both sides turned down the deal. Shlomo Ben-Ami, who was the foreign minister, said, I wouldn't have taken that deal at Camp David, the Israeli foreign minister. Then Taba came along, and Taba fell apart because Barack went to the polls and lost the elections. Ehud Barak lost the elections. He was a lame duck prime minister. Sharon came in. So you can rewrite history all you want. No one believes that's the case. But even if you were telling the truth, which you're not, let's talk about today.
This is where things get intense. Mehdi starts challenging widely repeated narratives about past peace deals, historical timelines, and political responsibility. Instead of letting statements slide, he pushes for evidence, context, and accountability. And whether you agree with him or not, one thing is clear: this isn't just a debate, it's a clash of completely different worldviews.
Benjamin Netanyahu brags that he's blocked a two-state solution. The guy who you volunteered to be a lawyer for in front of the International Criminal Court, wanted war crime suspect, has openly bragged that I blocked a two-state solution. His words, I blocked a two-state solution. So you can rewrite history all you want. The present day is proof that you're talking nonsense. This Israeli government, this far-right government, has no interest in peace with the Palestinians, only interested in ethnic cleansing. And the best part of listening to you speak about agency, everything you said could be said about Hamas and the Palestinians. The Palestinians would say Hamas is a result of Israelis not giving us our freedom. Hamas is a result of Israelis besieging and boycotting Gaza for decades on end. Hamas is a result of Israeli leadership coming and killing our leaders and imprisoning our leaders. So the same arguments you use to defend genocidal fascists in the Israeli government could be used to defend Hamas.
And the point I would make, Alan, and you can respond to what Mehdi just said in a moment, but the point I would make about Netanyahu, bringing it back to him, is that he didn't have to form a government with Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. He knew what they were like. He knew they were far more to the right than he instinctively was. I don't believe he felt that they represented the wishes of the Israeli people, but I think he also is power mad, and I think that he realised the only way he could get power back was if he did a deal with the devil in this case being Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. And the interesting thing now politically is whether he is building up, and it's slow momentum, but there's a bit of momentum from where he was, but whether Likud could now win an election without these far-right guys. So my question for you would be, I don't think we should give Netanyahu a pass because he got into bed with these guys very willingly. It was his way of getting power.
But here's what makes this moment so powerful. Even the host, Piers Morgan, begins questioning decisions made by current leadership. He raises a critical point. Can political leaders be held accountable for the alliances they choose? And at what point does compromise turn into responsibility? These are not simple questions, and there are no easy answers.
And staying out of prison.
In other words, you say Netanyahu is a politician in addition to being a statesman. He wanted to win the election because he thought winning the election would be best for Israel, best for his people, and best for world peace. And so he was prepared to make the kinds of compromises that every coalition government makes. I was actually in Israel when he was forming his government, and I met with Smotrich, I met with Ben-Gvir. I urged Netanyahu not to include them in the coalition, but he wouldn't have been prime minister. Who knows what would have happened if that hadn't happened. But remember as well, too, you talk about that the Palestinians were never offered a state. The UN offered them a state in 1948, 1947, the Piers Commission, 1938. The Palestinians don't know how to take yes for an answer. And Bill Clinton put it very well. He said Hamas, and he spoke really about the Palestinians, don't want a state. They want there not to be a Jewish state. Palestinianism, the focus on the Palestinians, as distinguished from focused on many other groups in the world that deserve statehood, the focus on Palestinianism is destruction. Bill Clinton says Hamas does not want a state. It just wants to kill Jews and kill Israelis. Now, how do we move forward from this? What we move forward from this is Hamas accepts the Israeli peace offer, which they have now rejected. Let's get the hostages back. Let's make peace. Let's have a process which could conceivably lead to a two-state solution. Look, I don't blame Netanyahu for saying you can't have a two-state solution now. You can't have a state where on its border you have Hamas running Gaza, where they've sworn to do October 7th again and again and again and again and again. You can't have that kind of a state. So we all hope the goal is a two-state solution. The goal is to get rid of Ben Gvir and Smotrich, but the Palestinians have to come to the bargaining table legitimately, end the war, return the hostages, and then we can move forward. Okay.
As the debate continues, both sides bring up strong arguments about security, civilian impact, and long-term consequences. You'll hear references to history, war strategies, and global politics. But underneath all of that, there's a deeper issue. How do you balance national security with human cost? That's the question no one can avoid in this discussion.
Okay, before I let Mehdi respond to that, and he will, my response to that would be, for the same reason that you can't let Hamas have power going forward because they are wedded to the destruction of Israel, in the same way, you could argue now, I think pretty clearly, that the Israeli government, the current one, is wedded to the total destruction of Gaza. And in fact, in Smotrich, out of his own mouth came a plan to cleanse the Strip completely of Palestinians. So there's not much difference here in terms of the intent or rhetoric. Certainly from people like Smotrich. And then it comes down to, well, what influence do they have? And everyone tries to downplay it, but the New York Times makes it crystal clear that big deals have been on the table and Smotrich has refused to countenance them and has threatened to bring down the government if it goes ahead.
Well, there is a big difference between Hamas, which murders innocent people and babies and children, and Israel, which defends itself against such actions.
Now, but Israel is killing so many. Yeah, but Alan, we've had this conversation. Israel is now. Israel is losing.
Not a single.
I know, but Israel's losing people like me. Right, and many like me who had a lot of support for Israel's right to defend itself
I agree with that.
Because of the sheer volume of innocent children in particular that are being slaughtered on a daily basis. Now, it's an arguable point
it doesn't
whether
even
everything
compare.
the IDF is doing is intentional or not. They say none of it's intentional, but they are killing a staggering number of children in the process of going after Hamas.
Let's just remember one point. One of the greatest days in American history is June 6, 1944, the greatest generation. They killed so many more civilians in the process of ending Nazism. Another great day was VJ Day. I was old enough to remember it. They killed 100,000 or more civilians. Israel is doing far, far less than the United States and Great Britain did. When your people are endangered, when your children are murdered and your women are raped, then you do engage in actions. And particularly, remember, in England and in the United States, the enemy wasn't hiding among civilians, whereas Hamas brags about the fact that its civilians are martyrs. We want them to die. The goal, the tactic of Hamas is let's get Israel to kill as many civilians as possible, 50,000, 60,000, and then we can get Piers Morgan to turn against them. That's their goal. They are targeting you, and you're accepting it because that's their goal. And I don't blame you. Good people support Hamas, or at least oppose Israel, because they don't understand that all these deaths are the result. No, I'm not saying that. I say good people do. Some people do. The people who march in New York or oppose Israel because they don't fully understand the tactic of Hamas to kill as many.
No, I understand that. Okay, I want to go to Mehdi. I want to go to Mehdi. Alan.
Then comes the most controversial part, claims and counterclaims about what is happening on the ground right now. This is where the debate becomes extremely intense and emotional. Both sides present very serious accusations, and it's important to understand, these are claims made during a live debate. They are strongly disputed and part of an ongoing global conversation.
I fully understand the tactic of Hamas. What I don't understand, I don't understand are the current tactics of the Israeli government, which seem to be not a lot better. Mehdi, your response?
I mean, I don't know what to respond to. So much was said, and so
better.
much nonsense there was said about violence and killings by someone, as I say, who's volunteered to defend Netanyahu at the International Criminal Court, where he's been indicted with the former Israeli defense minister for war crimes.
I'm proud of that.
And crimes against humanity. Of course you're proud of it, because you don't value Palestinian life. Let's just deal with some things you said. Number one, you talked about deals and negotiations. Gershon Baskin, who is the only Israeli negotiator to have ever successfully negotiated with Hamas, keeps saying, he said it just the other day, go check his Twitter feed, that he has communications from Hamas saying, we have offered the Israeli government a full ceasefire. We will leave government. We will not govern Gaza. We will return all the hostages in return for a permanent ceasefire. Israel doesn't want a permanent ceasefire because Smotrich and others want 60 days and then they go back to the killing when the hostages are released. He's offered a permanent end to the war. Israel doesn't want a permanent end to the war. That's what Baskin is saying. Secondly, you talk about killing of kids.
I do. I would like that.
You talk about killing of kids. I mean, the Israeli military does intentionally kill children.
Deliberate.
Let's read
972.
Israeli publication interviewed 7 Israeli soldiers and officers, Piers, who returned from Gaza. Just last week, in several cases, the soldier said, Israeli troops deliberately targeted children. There was a boy who entered the zone. He didn't do anything. Other soldiers claimed to have seen him standing, talking to people. That's it.
And
they dropped a grenade from a drone. In another incident, soldiers tried to kill a child riding a bicycle.
And they get prosecuted
so
for it.
they have not been prosecuted. Alan, don't lie on television where people can fact you. None of them have been
prosecuted.
They
have been.
Which
I
soldier?
know they have been.
Which soldier was prosecuted for dropping a grenade on a child?
There are dozens
You're lying
of them
on national TV. Piers Morgan can come back on the next episode and tell everyone that you're not telling the truth.
And that's exactly why this debate is going viral. Because it's not just about one topic, it's about truth versus perspective, power versus accountability, and how narratives are shaped in real time. By the end, one thing becomes clear. This wasn't just another TV argument. This was a moment where 3 powerful voices, Mehdi Hasan, Alan Dershowitz, and Piers Morgan, collided in a way that left viewers questioning everything. But here's the real question no one is asking: who actually controls the narrative we see every day? And how much of what we believe is shaped by the voices we hear the most? Because debates like this don't just reveal opinions. They expose how powerful ideas are framed, defended, and challenged in real time. And whether you agree with Mehdi or side with Dershowitz, one thing is undeniable. This conversation forces you to think deeper. It forces you to question everything. So don't just watch and scroll away. Take a second and ask yourself, what do you actually believe about all of this? And more importantly, why? Drop your honest opinion in the comments. I read every single one.